What up, what up, what up, what up?
Greetings and salutations, man. What's up, Shmi? What's up, We That Nation? How y'all doing out there?
What's going on, We That Nation?
How was your day, man? Keep it 100.
It was busy because I'm going out of town. Mm-hmm. So you wanna save your haircut as an African American guy. We want to save our haircuts to the last minute so it can last long. We can't get no haircut on Thursday to go out of town Monday because it won't be fresh and crispy. But
am I allowed to say what's up, shipmate, to Xavier? Or is that just
no, you can't. Okay, you can't. Like what up, shipmate? What up, Xavier? Right. Thanks for coming through. Xavier went to another Chargers game. It didn't come out as
my boy. I can say what's
good
up
as he wanted to. Hey, what's going on, Ben? Happy Monday.
My brother right there.
So, and my barber is all that. He follows us on Instagram. If you don't follow us on Instagram, please follow us on Instagram as well. But he just shaky. The better the barber, the shakier out. From a haircut.
He's clean, though. Ain't he clean, Keyshawn? He clean.
Hey, appreciate that, shipmate. That's another Navy buddy. But he got skills. And when you have a barber that got skills. Well, I just got one more. Hey, what time you say you man? So it's always an adventure, but I love him like a play brother. How about you?
At least you got your barber established, because I think I shared this before in here. Like, you know how when you go to the barbershop, right, and you kind of figure out, okay, this shop, and for me, it's just more, listen, I'm balling, man. It's not a lot that I need you to do. Just shake this up every once in a while, right? So I'm coming in there. I really don't care who, you know what I mean?
Mistake number one. Mistake number one.
Yeah, that's true.
Mistake number one.
I didn't realize how much, I've forgotten, because it's been years since I started doing the beard thing a little bit. Like, hey, man, you need to train it. You need to kind of go in there every 2 weeks or so, get that thing right? So I go in, I've come in a couple times, and the guy, pretty good guy. But I feel like if I go in there and he's in there, I have to wait for him now. Weird, you know what I'm saying?
The proper barber etiquette. That's a whole show. That's a whole show.
On, man.
That is a whole show right there.
So then, what's kind of got me, like, he's a good dude. He's bad. He's actually good at his. He did a good job.
Yeah, you looking good. I see your beard coming up. I like it.
Yeah. But thing is, man, it's like I come in and I feel like pressured,
hey, Shamika.
Get with him. You know what I mean? And I don't know how I feel about that. But then to make it even crazier, it's like now he's talking like, ask about the show. It's like, oh, that's cool. I feel like I kind of owe it to him to stick with him. You know what I mean? He's good. I tip him well. To me, that should be it. But I kind of feel like, Rick, he
you can't just stop going to one guy and go to another guy.
The other guy, you know what I'm saying?
That's a violation of the barber rule.
I guess I'm in a relationship now with my barber.
Yeah, you stuck unless you go to another one.
Unless I go to another one.
Yeah. So you might have to go to another barber, but you looking good. Hey man, we had a great weekend down this way.
Yes,
we had Atlanta United won. They're creeping back into that playoff picture. They were in there. They bounced down a little bit. We had the Bulldogs dominated. Got that backdoor cover. I told y'all to watch out. And then most importantly, those Braves, man. Those Braves did their thing. And then the Falcons didn't lose. I promised you the Falcons weren't going to lose. Bam! There you go. They didn't lose.
You hilarious, man.
You didn't lose any money on the Falcons.
You Nick Cannon today. You funny. Are we gonna lose? I feel like great about our chances the next game, but we'll talk about that on Thursday.
So, hey man, let's talk about it now. So the Braves, if you're not following, okay, the Braves won the least amount of games of any playoff team. But the whole thing. Oh, Shamika, 5-1. She's a Cowboys fan. We go talk to him. We go talk to him. Hey, Zay, we got your back. And so the way baseball really is, it's really like, here's a secret. It's not a team game in the regular season. It's like golf or tennis. You're competing. You're just trying to get your numbers, and hopefully your team benefits while you get your number. Mm-hmm. But in the playoffs, it's a whole different game because it doesn't matter about the numbers. It doesn't matter. You can have one hit in 2 games, but if it's that key hit, that's more important than going 3 for 4, but not having the RBI or not scoring any runs. So,
Okay, Keyshawn, that's one, man. That's one. There's one for you.
Yeah. You have to limit Keyshawn. He thinks he's but so everybody was picking the Dodgers against the Braves, but a couple things happened. The Braves took care of their series. First of all, everybody's picking the Brewers against the Braves. Yep. The Braves took care of their series quick. Yep. And so that allowed them to set up their rotation. The Dodgers, on the other hand, had to bring Scherzer out of the bullpen to close out the 9th, right? So we knew we had an advantage, maybe not in pitching talent, but having our bullpen. So then they had a bullpen game to start the series. When you do a bullpen game, you need to win that bullpen game. Yeah. Because you need 2 things happen with a bullpen game. You need to win that game, and or you need your starter to go a lot of innings the next game. Exactly. And Scherzer, his arm was still dead because of that relief appearance. So they should have pushed him back. Also, Clayton Kershaw is injured. Hey, that's my wife. What up, Smitty? Thank you. We got to have you on here. Brother. And so the
shout out to the first lady of the show, Carly.
But let's be clear, the Braves were set up last year when they were up 2-0, and they were set up last year when they were up 3-1. So that's what's giving Braves fans a little pause. But what I'll say the difference is we're up 2-0, and Charlie Morton hasn't pitched yet.
That's what, man, you beat me to it, because I was going to ask, because see, we were talking earlier, and I said, me and Jameed are 2 different Braves fans. I am the pessimistic one. You have to understand, I'm 46 years old. I was literally brought up. I remember the 80s. I need for my outside Atlanta fans to understand something real quick. And we won't go long. I'm a bit long-winded. Just cut me off, Jameed. You have to understand that growing up in the hood, we didn't have cable television, but everybody in Atlanta had TBS. So we got to watch the Braves. And it got
over and over again.
Listen, I was such a fan. I could tell you by the 3rd inning how we were going to win, how much, man, I was just into it, man. I'm talking about 10, 11, 12 years old. You couldn't tell me that Dale Murphy and Bob Horner wasn't the truth. That 86 Mex team kind of shook my allegiance a little bit.
Wait a minute. Janky Joker.
I was how you going to look at Blake Gooden and I like that? So that's a whole other thing. But I'm just being real. But outside of that, I was Braves fans through and through. But with that was a lot of heartbreak. We never watched. We would lose to the Dodgers when it mattered the most. And I don't know if you young guys remember this, but actually we used to be in the same division as the Dodgers, the Giants.
That's where our rivalry started with the Dodgers. And exactly. I will inject something here, Ricardo, because all of my relatives in Arkansas, right? And Arkansas, they were Dodgers fans. And so I used to be like, so you could get TBS out there. And I would go, why do y'all like the Dodgers? And it was because of Jackie Robinson.
Yep. In fact, let me tell you something. I had an older person say, we don't say nothing bad about. Matter of fact, my cousin on her Facebook reminded me that she said, we don't say anything bad about Jackie Robinson's team. So it's kind of, it's a quandary for me because I kind of really hate him a little bit, but I don't say it out loud because Mama and them said, that they did the favor, it is what it is. But anyway, I say all to make a very long point, very short. There's like, man, there's a different type of allegiance for the Braves for me, and I'm a bit more fearful Whereas Jameed kind of said more reassuring, and his most important point was Morton. Well, we got a third pitcher this year. Because I said, well, we were up 3-1 last year. What's the difference? He thinks Morton will be the difference. And so I'm hoping he's right. I do feel like we do look good, but it's just, boy, the Dodgers are really good.
And to Smitty's point, he said, we finally got the right mix of natural hitters and power. Yep. Two guys we've never had. We've never had a Jock Peterson.
That's true. Man, he's a dog. Right?
And we've never had a Rosario as well, right?
No.
And so, Rosario, let me give Double A credit, right?
Yes.
Because, he's working with a limited budget.
Yep.
He traded for somebody he knew couldn't play. He couldn't play he was on the injured reserve, right?
Mm-hmm.
And we traded Panda, who had really fizzled out at that point. Yeah. And people were like, why would they trade? They already traded for those other outfielders. Mm-hmm. And it's coming to roost because Edwin Rosario is a professional hitter, right? He is Puerto Rican guy, Boricua, and he is a professional hitter. So, I'm fans of any Afro-Latino players. So he already shot up my list. But right now, Jock is really rocking it. Jock has that unique personality. And here's the thing. I saw some fans, Freddie struck out 7 times, and Freddie, blah, 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 blah. Hey, man, we won 2 games without Freddie hitting. Mm-hmm. One thing for certain, 2 things for sure. Freddie is going to hit in this postseason. And when he does, let's watch out. So, I like
Ben's good. I like Ben's question. You think is Solar going to make it back to the series? He's right. Imagine having him in right now.
So the baseball protocol is a little different than the football protocol, right? Okay. So he has to go X amount of time plus get cleared. Right. So like football, if you test positive today, you remember how Nick Saban pulled that fake thing on us, where he coached the Alabama. As long as you get 2 positive, it doesn't matter how many times you do it. In baseball, it's different. You have to be clear X amount of days, and it's not just enough to have 2. But it is a possibility he could come back if this series goes long, or if we go to the next series.
Mm-hmm. Man, Smitty, boy, good point. I can't wait to have you on, sir. That was the best thing about the 90s Braves, man. I promise you them games was over in 2.5 hours.
Hey, man, it was going to be a pitching a pitching display.
And you can't get your man on second base by the 3rd inning. It's a wrap.
I'm still kind of salty. We only got 1 championship out of that, but that's just me. That's just me.
There you go. That's the angst that I'm coming from. See,
right.
I saw the.
Oh no, I get you. You're not coming from a crazy place. You're not coming from a crazy place.
Yeah.
Speaking of a crazy place, another week of college football, more chaos.
Yeah, man.
Chaos. Purdue went in there and mollywopped Iowa at Iowa.
What was surprising was not the win. I think that Iowa's offense they were doomed to fail. But what was surprising was the mollywopping. Right. It
was one of those games. They dominated from start to finish. Mm-hmm. They dominated from start to finish. Georgia. Yeah, you don't believe in Soroka? I hope he can be the same, because if we re-signed Charlie Morton. So if Soroka can come back, and I think Ian Anderson matures, we got our 4 starters for the playoffs.
Well, we got a great medical person that could tell us a little bit about Soroka's injury concerns. What would you say that? I could see, from my understanding, that's one of those injuries that you really aren't where you're supposed to be until your 2nd year.
No, that's not the case for Achilles. Achilles is not like an ACL. The ACL is a proprioception ligament. So in other words, part of how your body knows when it's falling and all that stuff, we think it's just our brain and then the equilibrium in our inner ear, but it's other things that help it out. And the ACL is one of them. The Achilles is just a purely strong functional ligament, and it's a tendon actually that typically you replace it with a ligament. But if you have to replace it, or it's used in ACL replacements, the repair, it's rare that the repair fails. But again, it's a different thing when you do a repair for an athlete that's trying to push it. So I think hopefully I would rather have him come back in the middle of the season next year, because he was trying to push it. It felt like, remember we were talking, and it felt like the Braves were pressuring him. So I hope he comes back.
Yeah. He didn't think Iowa was special.
They weren't special. And remember, we talked about that Big Ten is going to work itself out, but I didn't think that would be a part of the work, right? Because Michigan State won, Penn State and Ohio State were out. But those three teams we just mentioned still have to play each other. Iowa is in the West, so they don't have to play those teams in the East. But all those teams in the East have to play each other. So we'll see how that works itself out. Georgia dominated against Kentucky. We talked about that a little bit. The defense, even though they gave up 2 touchdowns, if possible, they looked better. Kentucky was the best team they played so far this year, including Clemson. Kentucky was averaging 30 points a game. They scored 13, and that was on the last second. If you're not impressed with Georgia's defense, I don't know what can impress you. Cincinnati kept up. They have to win their games by a lot of points. But in the new polls, they're number 2, and then Oklahoma is number 3. Since they went to that freshman that Ricardo told us about a long time ago, that's going to be something else. I don't see them losing a game in the Big 12. And when I say that, Iowa State is going to go in and beat them. So watch that, because Iowa State is one of those teams, and that's why that coach is looked at by the NFL. Him and David Shaw, their teams get better and better as the season goes on, but that doesn't work for college football. So it's going to be hard for them to win. Alabama dominated Mississippi State. Remember I told you, bet that mortgage on Alabama. Oklahoma State won, Michigan State won, Ole Miss and Tennessee. The game itself was all right, but the fans got unruly and out of control and embarrassing. And
did you get to see any of that? Like, because I saw it live.
I saw it live as it was happening.
I saw it. Now, what I saw, what was interesting was I agreed with the sentiment. I thought, and I'm a Tennessee hater. It was weird because I hate them both so much. I hate Lane Kiffin. I definitely am not rooting for him. And I hated Tennessee for the fact that you're making Lane Kiffin look decent right now. So I hate them both. But as far as the initial, of course, there was probably vitriol the entire, just the fact that he was there, probably ticked off the whole. I'm sure that's where part of it where it came from. I did think that the boy had the first down, me personally. I thought, the refs were kind of, I don't know, the refs in college, and particularly the pros, but especially college this year, have been iffy all year. Now, I'm one of those guys that.
But the only thing was the ball wasn't in his lead hand.
But you can't see. He's opposite. It wasn't like they had it to where, to me, it was like, hey, man, the boy went over. It's close. Give it to him. It's 36 seconds. But anyway.
Well, did he make it, or did you say give it to him? That's too.
No, I thought he had it. I thought he made it. I thought he made it. But if it's close, you give it to him. I don't know. Smitty says that Georgia needs to find their feature back. Whether it's White, Milton, or Cook, it'll be crucial down the stretch. Defense is national championship worthy. Boy, we could do a whole show on that. I always thought that, and I'll be honest with you. I could break that down on 3 levels. The first level, it still bothers me that we had a young man, Tank Bigsby, that was begging to go to the University of Georgia. Made a video with Dog Nation, and I already had it set up, queued up, and they said, not so fast. We're waiting on to see if this young man that's got problems. I'm not going to, the kid from Texas ended up going to Texas A&M. Yeah. And that just was not a good move. He's right in a sense. I no longer think that you have to have that running back anymore, because number one, our offensive line, it looked like we're finally starting to gel. They're moving. I mean, you got to listen, Kentucky, that defense is for real. They just had the misfortune of playing us. Arkansas, that defensive line, they ain't no joke. They just had to miss. First of all, the scheme was just like, hey, we gonna keep running the ball, but that's a whole nother situation. It's like put the linebackers 3 yards back. Okay, we'll see what happens. 4 yards back, whatever. Okay, but I'm not sure. I think Milton has the most talent, but I think my partner said this, and I think he's right. Cook will look better in the NFL. I really do think that. I think
they're going to split, and I think they all offer something different. If you combine all of them, you might get that back that you have. But people were talking about that on fantasy, and earlier. The super backs that we were used to, they're no more.
Yeah,
there's no more Herschels. There's no more Bowes. There's no more James Brooks. There's no Todd Gurley.
No, that's hard to come by. It's hard to get a guy that runs a 4.3 40 that is 225 pounds that can jump 36.
If Herschel and Bowe came now, they would be playing defensive end. That's where they are.
Yeah. To that point, if you want to talk a little recruiting, Carson Beck is not going to hit the field, and it's not just because of Manning. The problem is our best quarterback ain't going to play this year. Our best quarterback, who's perfect for Monken's offense, is this Brock Vandagriff. And you ask any Oklahoma person, they'll tell you the best quarterback in the country right now playing is Caleb Williams from Oklahoma.
He only went to Oklahoma because Vandagriff.
Exactly. Man, this is why. Y'all see the man. This is why we are who we are.
Yeah. And so, talking a little bit about Auburn and Arkansas. Auburn looked really good. Utah upset Arizona State. Baylor beat BYU, and LSU. LSU ran the ball right down Florida's throat. The only unfortunate thing about that game that I was hoping was going to be saved for our game was Emory Jones played so bad they had to get the freshman in there. The freshman doesn't love it there. They asked him if he's committed to Florida after the game. He said, "We'll take that year by year. Right now, I'm committed to Florida." But he has a lot more talent than Emory Jones. But he's still young.
Full disclosure, we understand our audience. We understand that there are all types of college football fans in the Atlanta area. There are Tennessee fans. There are Auburn fans. There are Georgia fans, Georgia Tech, Clemson, Alabama, Florida State. I don't know if I can speak for Jameen and everybody else, but my hate for Florida is rival to my Lakers hate for all things Boston Celtics. So
I can say I don't like Florida. I will cover them with gusto, but that was great to see LSU run it down their throat because we have more talent than LSU has in the backfield and on the line. Texas A&M beat Missouri, who we still have to play. That's going to be a not a good game. And then North Carolina State killed Boston College, and I told you to stay away from that game. I was wrong, but I didn't tell you to bet on Boston College. Also, Atlanta United won, moving back into that playoff race, and a shout out to the Chicago Sky, Brittany Griner particularly, and Candace Parker, who I kind of know because she had a huge crush on my cousin and asked him to the prom.
Really?
And so, and then as a Hawks fan, you know her because the unfortunate pick of Sheldon Williams, that's her husband, or was her husband.
Baby daddy, that's her baby daddy.
Yeah, that was her husband. So So shout out to Candace. And on a sad note, a guy who meant a lot to me and a lot of us who put on that uniform, regardless of service, Colin Powell died today of complications from COVID. He was vaccinated, but he had a breakthrough case, and he was 84. I keep his family in your thoughts and prayers. President Obama wrote an eloquent letter to him and his family. And Colin Powell was a sports fan. When he was the Secretary of Defense, we didn't have to on the Super Bowl. It was like, hey man, chill down with that stuff. So that was cool. But I will say that Colin Powell brings up a lot of thoughts about how the intersection of sports and race. And we're not a show that runs away from anything. So we said, listen, why don't we get an expert on who can really talk this talk? Tell us about this expert that we're going to bring on, and we'll let him tell us. We'll let him introduce himself.
Yeah, Brian Hill's a good friend of mine. I met through Facebook. We're
not the Falcons, Brian Hill.
No.
Okay.
Okay. But this guy, man, he's just one of those dudes, man. We I've been in a few sports groups with him, and just kind of picking his brain. I just like the way he thinks. I said, Brian, listen to me, brother. We're gonna have you on the show. We got to figure something out. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
I don't know what we're gonna have you talking about, but I said I just love the way you think. I don't always agree with Brian, but I love the way he breaks stuff down, his perspective on things. He'll tell you a little bit about his story and where he's from. He's from Omaha, Nebraska. I told him, I said, brother, before y'all, I never met any black people. I didn't even know we had any black people in Omaha.
Well,
Nebraska.
You didn't know. You didn't know that. So without further ado, let's bring Brian on here. Brian, welcome to We Sports Atlanta. Thanks for having me. Your talents, brother.
All right. Thanks for having me. My name is Brian Hill. I have a website, podcast, Long Boxing While Black. We talk about comic books, movies, pro wrestling, sports, anything that intersects with Black culture, in addition to being a Black nerd and enjoying the nerdy side of life.
A fellow blurred.
Blurred, right. I'm going to be launching Blurting While Dad, where I talk about more parent kind of stuff. But that's really where my focus is. And I'm into sports. I can talk about a lot of different things. I know that we kind of had something laid out here. So, we're going to talk about,
Gruden in the emails.
Yeah, the emails, the NFL's email gate. And I have some opinions about that one. So
let's go right into it. We talked about it a little bit. Jameed, man, eloquently shared some points in terms of his concerns. I think, I'm gonna give you the floor, man. What is your thoughts in terms of like when I think they said, was it Friday or was it Saturday when they said they actually found that there was no other incendiary emails. There's no other bad emails. Can you believe
that? That's interesting. Because I would, in a league where, what is it? Only the Jags and the Bills have non-white owners, and consortiums of Black owners, people trying to take ownership of teams have been kind of shut down routinely. And there's always kind of this power struggle between the majority, the players union, who represents, and I don't know what the exact percentages are, but the percentages are a majority Black group of players versus the owners one. I find it hard to believe that there's not any more incendiary emails. I to the point where that feels like spin cycle. That feels like that kind of raggedy spin cycle where your washer kind of takes a trip across the floor of the laundry room. It's banging loudly. And we all know that there's something wrong with the washer, but nobody wants to really admit it.
Wow. Great analogy. Wow.
I think that there's more. I look at it like Gruden wasn't the only one.
Yeah.
And I know in the process, because I think the investigation initially centered on the Washington football team and some problems.
Theoretically, yes.
So I doubt strongly that this is an isolated case. I'm thinking there's probably a couple of other Grudens. I know we all worked corporate. We all did the corporate thing. We know how even corporate emails, some of the wild stuff as a Black person, what you get tagged on to, some of the emails are filtered into your box. And so I don't buy what the NFL is selling in terms of that at all.
At all. I appreciate that in terms of the corporate thing, because that could be another show in itself. Let me ask you both this. Do you guys think that so it's totally over, or do you think that there'll be some other repercussions that come out later on down the road? Because like you said, there's no way that the only set of emails was this example. I'm sure that there are people sweating bullets when all this came out, hoping to goodness that they don't get caught too.
I think it's one of those things where You open a can of worms, and the only way that you can get the worms back into the can is to find a bigger can. And I think they found a bigger can. They're going to have to reopen that can of worms at some point in time, especially with I don't know if the Washington investigation is still going on, but there's going to be something else that comes out. The NFL historically, and I love professional football. You know, I grew up watching it, but the NFL is one of those things where they try to remain uncontroversial at all times.
Which gets them in trouble.
And it gets them in more trouble on the fence, and they won't address any of these issues head on because the owners have so much power, and we already know the owners.
Right. I think that power dynamic is unique within the sports. Baseball used to be like that, and as you went from remember when an owner was a commissioner for all those years, and as you transition from that, the player, a lot of it is owner's power versus the union power. And we know that the NFL union is the weakest of all the unions, even though they probably put their bodies on the line the most.
Let me ask you that.
Maybe them.
Why are they so weak? Why are they so weak? Why, in both of you, because I'm clueless. The only thing that makes sense to me is, man, I guess in the NBA, there's so many black players that it's just the numbers game. That's the only thing that makes sense.
I mean, don't be fooled. The NFL is majority black as well.
It is.
And it's not just because of the black players, not black players, what have you. Here's the deal with the NFL, and here's why NFL is the weakest. Okay. One, they get paid the least.
That's right.
So you can't last as long on a strike, because that's what it comes down to, right? The reason why Major League Baseball wasn't always this weak until they struck, and then they struck again, and then they struck again. If you've been a Braves fan, the threat of a real strike is the only thing that brings you equality. And so what happens is the NFL players, they don't have the money like that to sit out a year or sit out several months. During the player strikes, first of all, I think what the Ben Simmons situation and I think the Kyrie situation is, these guys are spending too much of their money. That's one. That's all around. But I think the NFL guys have the least. The other thing is there's a huge disparity between the upper class in the NFL and the lower class.
Yeah,
and
good point.
Aaron Rodgers and Pat Mahomes, they could last a strike. But almost nobody else on their rosters could last a strike. Think about what I just said.
That's a very good point.
2 players out of 106 players on those combined rosters could probably last a year strike. The other ones can't. And so that's how the owners have them. The owners, because you not only do they make less, but they only get paid when the games happen. And so, when the original John Gruden stuff came out, I couldn't believe it. I was like, how could they not sit out then? If they didn't sit out then, they're never going to sit out.
Right.
So when you wonder, why didn't they sit out with Kaepernick? Why didn't they do this? As a player on a different team, you could see how they could convince themselves that the Kaepernick thing doesn't have anything to do with you. But you're on a team with a guy who has emails with racist racist content, and you didn't sit out then, they never go sit out. And so, because to me, instead of all that kneeling, they should have been like, we all got foot cramps until we have a meeting with Roger to talk about this. So y'all need to call the sponsors, and we'll add a game on the end of the season. But this week, we're going to talk about this game. And it was their opportunity, but none of them could do it.
No, because nobody could afford to.
Nobody could do it.
No.
So that's how the owners know that. And the pay structure is to make sure that they keep it like that. So that's why the NFL is so weak, and they can't. Part of the problem, they don't have a full seat at the table. They're sitting at the kids' table, and the owners are sitting at the table together.
Yeah.
And so when you talk about, is it collusion or is it not collusion? the collusion starts is that they're not even sitting at the table. They're sitting at the kiddie table. We'll decide what happens, and we'll let you guys know. And we'll give you something to vote on.
And maybe we'll give you that old Negro spiritual. You remember they said at the beginning they're going to have us sing an old Negro spiritual. What's it?
African American.
Yeah. I was like, I don't know if you know this, Brian, but in our community, in our culture, the fact that I couldn't immediately tell you the name of the song is offensive to everybody.
Yeah, they're gonna be like, "Who is that, Ricardo?"
I know. Oh, wow, somebody.
But that was because we grew up in the seat of civil rights, right? Mm-hmm. So we are a little more connected to that, but that's not enough, right? No, and then you can't throw money at it. They said we'll give you some money for community centers. Mm-hmm. No, we need a full seat at the table because I promise you, if the African American and the LGBT player, which we know we have one on the Raiders, and all the players who respect their mothers would have set out that game, then they wouldn't have had a game, right? Wow. And so, one of the things is we are not easily offended. Like, we're so afraid of being called a snowflake. We're the first thing that we want to say is, well, that wasn't racist. And so then as the LGBT slurs, some of us said, well, this is what David Chappelle was talking about. And there's something to that. But one of the things that you're going to learn is if you think there's people who are just prejudiced against LGBT, right? Mm-hmm. But not prejudiced against African American. If you think that it's okay to make jokes about the Hispanic community and the outreach efforts, which was found in the email. Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah.
Black people. Yeah. If you think that people who won't hire women to these positions of power, but are passing around naked pictures of cheerleaders, but those guys are not, they're not racist either. It's all one ball, brother. It's all one ball. Sorry, Tony Dungy. It's all one ball. And
I remember you felt some kind of way about the Tony Dungy's and a couple other people that was kind of defensive initially.
Oh, yeah. Let me tell you, Tony Dungy has a long history of carrying that water. Mm-hmm. Right? Yeah. Wow. When he won the Super Bowl, he said it's more important that he's Christian than him being a black coach.
Mm. Yeah.
He didn't say it's just as important. He ran away from that. Yep. With Kaepernick, he said he was anti-Kaepernick, right?
Wow, that's right. He sure was.
He was anti-Kaepernick. He also came out against the extra draft pick compensation for the Rooney Rule, for teams that hire the Rooney Rule.
Yeah, that's right.
With Brian, as a Kansas City fan, if you're wondering why Eric Bieniemy can't get a job and a special team coach like Joe Judge can get a job and they're 1-5, the content of these emails, because here's the thing that you don't see in any of these emails. Not one that has been released. And I hope more get released. Hey, man, I don't know about that. I don't like the way you're talking. Not one. And these are the same people that's like, listen, we're not judging people. It just happens that special team coaches that can't get through a whole press conference without stumbling over their words interview better than a man who coordinates the offense for the leader offense and has shown eloquent public speaking all the time. Wow. I told you these things were going to come to bear. Byron, talk to us about these things, how these things are interconnected. What are these emails? These emails are just emails, right? From one guy in one league. And nobody else said anything else. So that's not connected, is it?
And the wild thing is the emails are buried. And I was like, so imagine the emails resurface, right? We talked about this, right? What other cases has the NFL recently settled in court? Recently that might get some new wrinkles if these emails come out. They settled that Kaepernick thing.
Kaepernick and Eric Reed, you were blackballed.
And you did, if you scratch deep enough, you're going to find the cross chat of owners and things, the collusion, the blackballing of specific black candidates for these head coaching jobs. You're going to find all of that stuff. The NFL doesn't like having a black eye. They don't like Because I remember all that entire where it became this, politically charged ownership. We're mad because these black folks are have the audacity to tell us, no, we're not going to stand for the anthem. The outrage of people, seeing that, the biggest offense was basically the biggest offense these players could do against a lot of the owners and stuff was mildly inconveniencing them by having to have a difficult conversation about why the players aren't acknowledging the national anthem. So you scratch that surface, you open up, because right now it's kind of like Raiders of the Lost Ark. They open up that the Ark of the Covenant, and we don't know what the blowback is for those owners, because who's implicated in what. And you're right. A lot of times people that are racist against one group, that they're not just racist against one group.
That's exactly right.
They have their biases and bigotry towards other groups and things like that. And we'll never, you never know who has said what that's very questionable. And that's the biggest challenge that the NFL is up against, because we don't believe them. Nobody believes them.
Trust me, you don't need to see this, but there's no other offensive thing. I know common sense would say, release all of them and we will see that it's none. But we're not going to waste your time with that. Just trust us. We're not going to waste your time with releasing the email.
The brothers that are going for these, these head coaching jobs or whatnot, they talk about it feels like the goalposts are always moving.
Wow.
They have different expectations. They have different expectations of ability to create plays and do the play calling in some instances that they don't have for other ones. And so you'll find that in the emails, and that's the wildest part, because I've all through my corporate life, some people have treated emails like a personal diary.
Wow, which is shocking, but it's true.
I know for a fact, and I know that they're the Dungies of the world. Yeah. They're the Dungies of the world that think that they've reached some level of esteem with their counterparts, and they can say and act in the same way that their counterparts do. But people treat these emails like a diary. I'm black. I know that anything that goes in those emails can be used against me at any point in time throughout history. And I know that in those emails you had owners and coaches just letting their hair down and thinking they're just talking amongst the boys. And so the depth of, I think I'll summarize this. They want to bury the emails because they don't really want people to know how regressive the NFL actually is. We gave you the Black National Anthem. You got to lift every voice and sing. What else do you want? We're giving money to this charity.
College fund.
We're giving charity. We're giving money to this charity that has black people working for it, that's still run by white folks that, in a lot of senses, may or may not interact with the community. But we're giving money to them, and so we'll find out exactly how regressive the NFL really is. And the biggest challenge is they have a workforce, for the lack of a better word, that really is the most put upon with these regressive policies. Wow. They're the ones that have to go back to their communities and look people in the face, and people are asking, like, how are you playing for them?
Right.
Okay, so I just wanted to kind of rehash a little bit, man. So first of all, man, I love, Jameez, your point about money. Money matters. Like, they just don't have enough money to be able to stick it out. They can't do the thing. That makes so much sense. I don't know why that never really registered with me. If I'm LeBron James, I don't need this. But guess what? If I'm Kyrie Irving, I don't need this either. If I'm on a rookie contract and I'm a first round pick, I'm doing all right. You know what I'm saying? What is that? 15?
Well, you're doing all right if you save your money. But if you look at that, part of the difference between people of color draft picks, whether it's the NBA, the WNBA, or what have you, because I saw this great special that talked about, and it was from the perspective of one of the white players, and she was saying her family doesn't have those expectations of them because they know they don't make that much money in the WNBA, which is another red flag that we'll talk about. And then one of the black teammates was talking about how their family still expects them to do all this stuff, including pay for 30 of them to go to a game.
Wow.
And so it is some cultural differences there. But yeah, money is a huge factor, Ricardo, because that the amount and the expectations, right, they don't match, right? When you're a pick, they think you're balling. But what you, after taxes, you making a little bit more than a CEO of a medium-sized company. Yeah, and those guys are not balling, and they definitely not.
And they drive Volvos.
Right, they're not paying for 30 people to go to a game.
Yeah,
I can tell you, I've had the corporate card, and it was like 3. It wasn't 30. So, you just have to look at those differences. The one thing that I heard last week that was disturbing to me, and I want to get this on wax so that anybody watching our show can understand this.
Okay.
I heard a lot of people saying, so that's why you got to be careful what you email. You can't just be saying anything. I don't. Hack my emails right now. Right. You will never find a racist email in there. You won't find a sexist email in there. You won't find any LGBT stuff in there. Mm-hmm. And so when you start talking about how different people use email, I don't know. I use emails like regular because I'm not a racist, a sexist, or bigoted against LGBT. So this whole thing of you got to watch what you do, that's code word. That's, red flag was taking over Twitter and Facebook. Yeah. That's a red flag. When you tell them you got to watch what you email, really, what are you emailing?
I ain't never sat down and said, hey, I got all these new slurs that I just want to try out.
Right.
Let me put this email.
Yeah. Let me just try these slurs out about my boss. Right. Let me throw some other ones. Also, from my work email, anybody wants some pictures of some naked cheerleaders that work for me?
Man. Right. Well, I tell you what. So you made a really good point about the money, and Brian, I love your point about, you know what, the brushback might not be worth it in terms of the bigger picture. Not for us per se, but for them, they feel like, if they're in a room and it's their top 30, 50 some odd staff members, I'm sure that what happened was they said, listen, we got to clean this up. The blowback is just not worth it. I don't know if you mentioned it on the show, but you said earlier, I don't think we've heard a peep out of Jerry Jones. Somebody put a muzzle on him.
No, Jerry said he thought that Bruce Allen did great things for the sport. So, yeah.
Of course. He had to get something in. He couldn't make it. But, man, you guys, great points by both of you. Appreciate it. Now, one of the questions I think Daryl Perry asked it a second ago, it's actually a good one. We need to address this. I know Brian knows his basketball, so he can stay in here for this. Is Kyrie back? Because Kyrie sure is acting like he don't care. What do y'all think is going to be the end game? See, I think it's going to – I think that he's going to end up playing. I don't know how, and I don't think he's going to get traded because I don't know. He's got to – I would trade him. I would trade him for a can of paint. I'm not a Brooklyn Nets fan, but I think they're good enough to win without him, and I don't think they need the distraction. I'd trade him no matter what, but I don't know. What do y'all think?
I think Kyrie's going Kyrie. There's two trains of thought that I think that he go. Either he's setting the stage with all this where he's basically setting it up so that he can get vaccinated, come back, and not have to answer any questions about it. I think that's one opportunity. That's one possibility. The other possibility is, he goes out and starts raising alpacas somewhere, and I think we ever hear about Kyrie. But I do think, and listening to that entire thing that he did on Instagram, there was a lot of, was it Orwellian kind of double talk? And
oh boy,
it was just, it was just a bunch of really super. Now this is just my opinion. People might get mad at this, but in my opinion, it was some very well thought out, articulate gibberish. It was It was.
Well, you must not be that familiar with the Hotep part of Facebook and Twitter. So I mean that whole thing is sometimes when kind of smart people talk to kind of dumb people, which we see on both sides of the aisles with a lot of the stuff happening in this country since January 6th. That's all I'll say, right?
Yeah, please.
That the not as smart people can think what that person is saying is much more eloquent than it is. First of all, I have been a Kyrie supporter. I like that the brother is like, hey, basketball is not the end all to be all for me, right? But I will say I don't support the world being flat. I don't support some of the stuff that he has professed, but that doesn't mean I don't support his right to think that. Right. I support Kyrie's right not to get the vaccination. Yeah. I just don't know if we're going to see somebody leave that much money on the table, because it's not just the money that he's paid the rest of this year. He's eligible for that 185 max contract extension.
And to that point, you have to remember, they didn't want Kyrie. They took Kyrie because of KD. So I don't know who else is willing to pay him that max anyway.
The team that needs to keep KD happy.
Yeah. Well, I'm saying if he's no longer with Brooklyn.
Right. No, I agree with you, but you already said that, and I already agreed to it. So maybe I didn't verbalize that. This is a Brooklyn or nothing deal, right? Because
I'm not sure about that.
No, you can't sell Kyrie to the rest of your fan base. You can't. The only minuscule chance is you could do a Kyrie for Ben Simmons swap, but does Philadelphia want that? And because you're still getting Kyrie, and before, if you take the vaccination out of it, he still hasn't played over 50 games in the last 3 years, and he's one of those. He really believes in his heart of hearts that as long as he's ready for the playoffs, he's good. So I think that's what he thinks in his heart of hearts. And he's played like that, not just last year, but the last 4 years. So if you're trying to, as the East has gotten more competitive, you need Kyrie to be where you are, because I'm going to tell you what's going to happen. Brooklyn's going to mess around, and they're going to have to go to Milwaukee again. They may find themselves going to Philly again. And they could mess around and find themselves going to Atlanta or Miami for that Game 7. And they're not that much better than those teams. Right? I think when they were at full strength, they looked way better than Milwaukee last year at full strength. But that was before that Milwaukee got that championship confidence. You know what that championship confidence, that make them shots go in. That make you a little less hesitant. That makes that rotation happen faster. So this idea that magically if we get Kyrie, now they're the number one team in the NBA, even over the Lakers and even over the defending world champions, I never bought that.
Y'all gonna make me be the Kyrie defender, guys? I don't want to.
I like Kyrie's stance.
I'm talking about his game. Listen, if there's a few teams in the league, and Philly's on the top of the list, that if they had a Kyrie and he was, there's a lot of ifs to it. If he plays more than 50 games,
it's more than just Philly. If Kyrie went to any team except for maybe the Hawks, because him and Trey play the same position, he's got to make them better. Be clear. Kyrie is a dominant and the best ball handler ever to play. And none of the good ball handlers can shoot as good as Kyrie. Like when you say, who is the ball handling between? Is it between Kyrie and God, Sham God? Is it between Kyrie and God, obscure guys like that? Listen, I love Isaiah. I think he's the best 6-footer ever.
Yeah.
Kyrie would dust Isaiah at his best. But he don't have the heart that Isaiah has. Okay. So the part that Isaiah played with is what's missing from Kyrie's game now and going forward.
I want to give Joe Ross's point. I like what he just said. I just agree with Stephen A. Smith. I could do a whole show about Stephen A. Smith, and it would be a bunch of dissing Stephen A. Smith. Calling another black man stupid, it makes us look bad, and other people see that and see that's why we don't hire them as coaches. Yeah, I like that. I didn't like that verbiage. Not a lot to say about that. I'm just not a Stephen A. fan.
I'm not a fan of calling grown men boys.
No.
Calling anybody stupid. And defining somebody else as being not racist or racist.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh, I don't. If somebody said to me, "Hey, do you think Brian is racist?" I would say nothing that he said presents to me as racist. But I wouldn't stand up here on a stature and talk about anybody being not racist. What I can talk about is this email racist? Yes. Right. Is the fact that there's only 2 football coaches in the NFL that are of color racist? Yes. Is the fact that there are probably about 8 guys who have enough money to buy an NFL franchise that are either LGBT, black, or people of color, and they can't get in the door? That's racist. I can say that. So I'm not going to comment on, do I think somebody is something? I can tell you, these are the facts, and these facts indicate that the one group is keeping another group out.
Exactly.
Well, and I want to go back a little bit because I saw a comment pop up regarding Kyrie. I kind of see Kyrie in the same way. You see how black folks, we kind of reacted to Jaden and Willow Smith.
Yeah, they're a little different.
They grew up a little bit different. Their thought processes are a little bit different. They don't value or consider. They have different sets of values, which is not a bad thing. They value their independence and their freedom. I kind of see Kyrie in that mold. My concern is in that locker room because KD is, and people have lots of different opinions about KD, but at the end of the day, KD just wants to play ball.
Right.
Everything in his character, he wants to focus on the game. He doesn't want to get into anybody's politics. He doesn't want to get into any of that stuff. He just wants to go out and hoop.
Thank you, Daryl.
And that can be a detriment in some cases, but for him, it's worked in his career. I think the clash we're going to see is the KD, Harden, Kyrie dynamic, where you got 2 dudes that just want to hoop. I think Harden likes.
I don't want to hoop and go to strip clubs, but
just want to do that, and that's what it is. And then you have Kyrie, who has all these other side missions and side projects that he wants, and other things that he wants to platform. I think we're going to start seeing the knot starting to fray a little bit, especially in that locker room, especially between KD and Kyrie, because KD would be like, I kind of brought you in here, man. I kind of campaigned for you to get in here, and I made it a contingency upon my, arrival that I wanted you. And we get deep in the playoffs, so I can't count on you.
Right.
And I think that's the piece that we're going to start seeing. But I don't begrudge Kyrie for being a free thinker. I think it's a matter of, if you're a free thinker and you want to do things your own way, that's fine. If you have the FU money to go out and do it, that's great. But when you are part of an organization, part of a team or whatnot, if you value the team, there's going to be some concessions that you make in terms of what your side missions are. And I don't know, and I'm not in the locker room, not in privy to these conversations. I don't know that, what concessions Kyrie is making in those other things that he has on his agenda for the benefit of the team. And I think that's where we're going to start seeing the trouble in the locker room.
Man. Yeah.
And what I say is, if Kyrie, my respect for Kyrie will increase if he really sits out for this cause. Then I can say, hey man, let me go buy some Kyries. Because Kyrie has stepped up for the WNBA. He donated a lot of money to them who, like we said, don't make quite as much as the NBA team. So his causes are A1 with me.
Right. If he really, George Mama house. Yeah.
Right. And so if he really believes in this enough to sit out, I would be probably more on the Kyrie bandwagon. But if this is just kind of a way to kind of help get out a part of the season, I won't have that same feeling.
Man, my guy there, DP, just said very well spoken, Brian.
I agree. It's been a pleasure to talk with you.
It's been a pleasure, brother. We got to have you back on, man. I told you guys, I said, man, this guy, tell us a little bit about just anything that you want to close with in terms of Nebraska or whatever, anything about, your sports knowledge or whatever, but you're going to be back on the show. We got to have you because, man, this is what we're talking about. We just love intelligent conversation. I tell you what, our show is We That, because it's kind of we talk about sports from an Atlanta perspective. Tell us a little bit about the Nebraska perspective, Omaha to be exact, if you can.
Omaha, Nebraska. All right, so forgive me, my fellow Nebraskans here. I'm a Husker fan. That is kind of the center of this universe in terms of sports in Nebraska. It's Nebraska football. You have your diehards for Creighton basketball. You have your diehards for even.
We could have done a show about the Creighton coaches' comments last year.
Yeah.
Oh wow. Yeah.
We'll come back on when college basketball starts.
Can you come on back on
people? We had a lot of people that weren't part of the group that he was speaking about, forgiving him for things that he did. It led to some interesting conversations.
I think Shamika said something about that. Boy, we quick on the forgiveness.
Yeah,
But it's kind of this, Nebraska football is kind of the center. If you are, and the Scott Frost thing and what's going on with the Huskers on the field, I have plenty of comments out there floating around in the universe about it. It's on shaky ground in my opinion of where we're at right now. But he has that hometown boy kind of vibe thing.
Is it on shaky ground because Trev Alberts, another guy who has that street cred in Nebraska, is in charge?
Trev is okay. So, all right, I'll jump into this. So I attended University of Nebraska in Omaha. And so that was the sports teams I follow. I'm still mad. Trev was kind of the hatchet man. He's kind of, and there's a lot of other reasons why UNO's football team got the hatchet, but Trev was the hatchet guy for that one. And I think that was a long time coming. The way he handled that and the wrestling team, they went out and won a national championship and came back to find the locks changed.
Oh wow!
From the locker room.
Wow.
That's kind of Trev, and that's for a lot of cats that graduated from UNO, that went to UNO and stuff like me. Trev doesn't, and cats who played for those football teams and were friends with the wrestlers or were wrestled, they have very strong negative opinions about Trev Alberts because of the way he handled that. These kids went out and won a national championship to come back and basically get that brown paper box where, where all your stuff's packed in it. They couldn't even go out and clear out their locker rooms. A call to the coach saying, yeah, we decided to cut the program on the night they won the national championship. That was just ugly. And in my estimation, Trev is kind of the guy that, if somebody will make this decision and push the eject button on this Scott Frost thing, he would be the guy to do it. And he, and Scott will find out, like, he'll be sitting there scrolling through Twitter and find out that Nebraska's decided to part ways with Scott Frost. Now, Trev does that. He'll just, he'll send him, he'll fire him via carrier pigeon, man. Trev is cold-blooded, bro. And so I think Scott's in a kind of precarious position, but it also comes with a lot of local gossip and stuff. And here's the thing.
I heard a little bit of that local gossip on.
Oh yeah. I know what you're saying, but I know
violent and doing a lot of if you're the head coach, if you're the CEO of my company, I should not know about the fact that you've got this lady over here pregnant, and you got, DUIs racked up, you got all this other stuff. And, there's this bar that you and all the other CEOs and high level people go and get hammered and act foolish. And so the street, in Oregon, that's one of the things that you locally, the local chatter with Scott Frost is, I know too much of there's too many personal details of his life that I don't need to know, that I do know, that I possibly do know. Now, it is gossip, and so you take
allegedly.
And it tracks with what I know of being around the same age as Scott Frost and being in college at the same time as Scott Frost, and having friends and stuff that play for the team and things like that, knowing people down there. I'm still hearing some of the same kind of things. Wow. And so it's going to be interesting. And I know that there's going to be always a contingent of Nebraska faithful that there's still people that will fight you to the ground about Bo Pelini. And so,
yeah.
So there's going to be that they'll never say it's time to move on from Scott Frost, and they'll always say it's a mistake. But I don't think that, you know, he's not doing a good enough job of using some of that discretion is what I'll say. Now, LSU I don't think Ed was really too concerned about keeping anything quiet.
Well, yeah, I mean, he was the president of the state.
Right.
And so he didn't feel like there was anything for him to keep secret. So I think that was probably the difference between those two. I think Scott is the big man on campus.
Right.
Ed was the president of the state in Louisiana. And so that led to whatever the rumors are about Scott Frost, multiply those times 100 is Ed Erdogan, because he actually got a public record divorce. That's not allegedly. And we've all had friends who've gotten, like, we've had friends that got divorced in their 20s and 30s. They acted one way. You don't want to see anybody in their 40s and 50s that get a divorce. They go act up. And
there's stuff that's still coming out, and there's stuff that's going to come out this week.
Oh yeah. It's because Ricardo always says when stuff comes out, it's because people want it to come out.
Yep.
And I think some more stuff is going to come out.
Yep.
So, Brian, where can we find you? We put up your overhang, long boxing while black. We have your Apple podcast.
Blurred Gang Joint.
We have your logo up there in the top right. We want all of our followers to follow you. Even if you don't agree with one thing he said. One of the things, let me tell you something. I follow a bunch of people on the side of the aisle that I'm not on, just so that I can hear their point to see, maybe, are they saying something that I'm missing? And so you got to make that a practice of yours if you want to be successful, and not just in podcasting, because this is not,
right, but
in life. If you don't know what the other side is saying, you're only arguing against what somebody else is telling you the other side is saying. So I want to encourage our people to follow a Blurred Gang Joint. It is a great follow on Apple Podcasts.
Hilarious. This brother's hilarious. He knows his stuff. He's got a couple other things he might have as follow. Do you have anything else you want to share before we head out?
Oh yeah, I got my marketing podcast. Is Brian Sells Words. I didn't put that in there, but that's one where I discuss.
If you send it to me, I can put it in the comments.
Bet. Okay. I'll send that over to you. So and basically both of them are whatever podcast service that you use. You'll find Long Boxing While Black or the Blurred Gang, and then you also find Brian Sells Words. And I appreciate you brothers having me on.
Hey man, we enjoyed talking to you.
All right. So,
well, for myself, Brian Hill, Professor Billingsley, also the Queen, she's not in the house today. She'll be with us on Thursday. We'll be back on Thursday at 7 o'clock Central Standard Time, 8 o'clock Eastern Time, 5 o'clock Pacific. Join us live then. If you can, go to our YouTube, press like, subscribe. Please share this with somebody if you can. Continue pressing like. We got over 800 followers on our Facebook. We thank y'all, each and every one of y'all. For all of these guys, peace up, A-Town down.